Good morning, and welcome to World in 15, your trusted source for comprehensive coverage of today's most pressing events, delivered with accuracy, integrity, and insight.
A year after being transferred from Diego Garcia, a remote UK territory, to Rwanda by the British government, a group of migrants say they feel isolated and unsafe. They described their situation in Rwanda as an open prison, highlighting serious issues with the controversial plan to send asylum seekers from the UK to Rwanda. We have Shelby reporting on this.
The small group of Sri Lankan Tamils was moved to Rwanda for urgent medical care following suicide attempts. They arrived from Diego Garcia, a UK-US military base, and were placed in two flats on the outskirts of Kigali, the Rwandan capital, funded by British authorities. Despite receiving $50 (£39) a week for food and essentials, they are prohibited from working, which compounds their sense of entrapment and helplessness. The migrants, who suffer from complex medical needs, including severe post-traumatic stress disorder due to past experiences of rape and torture, report inadequate medical treatment in Rwanda. Basagu, a 23-year-old migrant, claims Rwandan medical staff have shouted at him and threatened arrest when he sought help after self-harming. His flatmate, 26-year-old Meyer, has abandoned counseling due to ineffective medicine and lack of meaningful communication with healthcare providers. Legal representatives argue that the negative experiences of these migrants raise significant concerns about Rwanda's capacity to provide a safe haven for vulnerable refugees. The Rwandan government, however, defends its medical system and asserts that the migrants are receiving the best care possible. Senior Rwandan official Doris Iwisiza Picard expressed confidence in Rwanda's healthcare capabilities and noted that the migrants' safety concerns are not echoed by the broader foreign population in the country. The group's asylum claims were approved by the British Indian Ocean Territory (BIOT) administration, effectively granting them refugee status, but the UK has refused to accept them, insisting that BIOT cannot serve as a gateway to the UK. This refusal leaves the migrants in a precarious legal and personal situation, unable to return to Sri Lanka and stuck in Rwanda without a clear future. Despite reaching out to various British officials, including Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, for assistance, the migrants have seen no progress in their situation. They describe living as stateless prisoners under British sovereignty, but without any of the freedoms typically associated with it. Their experiences of harassment and fear further exacerbate their isolation, making them reluctant to leave their homes. This situation underscores the broader debate and division among political parties in the UK regarding the policy of relocating asylum seekers to Rwanda, raising important questions about the treatment and well-being of vulnerable individuals under such agreements. Back to you, John.
Thanks for that update.
Perched on a wooded hill, an abandoned Myanmar military camp overlooks a scenic lake, renowned for its unique heart-like shape. The ground is strewn with landmine canisters and spent bullets. Yellow wildflowers sprout through piles of corrugated tin sheets, remnants of soldiers' barracks, and hastily dubbed trenches line parts of the camp. We have Anthony reporting on this.
Under an overcast sky, a flag flutters in the wind, red, white, and blue stripes with a hornbill at the center, symbolizing the Chin National Army (CNA). This ethnic armed group fights against Myanmar's military junta in the western Chin state. 7 months ago, the CNA, along with local armed civilian groups, ousted the Myanmar army from this camp at Rikadar, a border trade town with India and other areas in Chin state. This marks an unprecedented advance for the Chin insurgents fighting the military dictatorship that overthrew Myanmar's fragile democracy in a 2021 coup. The victory at Rikadar followed multiple offensives over more than a year and came at a great cost for some families. 17-year-old Lomanpui, who loved dancing and idolized soldiers, convinced her parents to let her join the armed civilian movement in their village, Hanuel, after the coup. In a school essay, she expressed her desire to join the People's Defense Force, viewing the Burmese soldiers as merciless enemies. In August 2022, armed civilians from Hanuel, including Lomanpui, launched an attack on Rikadar camp. Lalzadinga, Lomanpui's father, who became a key figure in the People's Defense Forces, recalls the intense 13-day drone bombardment. Despite their efforts, they were initially unsuccessful, suffering casualties on both sides. On August 14, 2022, The Myanmar army retaliated by storming Hangul, torching nearly a dozen homes. Among 17 hostages taken were Lalman Pui and her 15-year-old brother, Lalruat Moya. The others were released, but the siblings were later found brutally murdered in a shallow grave outside the village. Lalman Pui had been raped, and her brother tortured. The Myanmar military has yet to respond to these allegations. Lalzadinga and his wife, Lalthan Lulangi, mourn their loss but remain resolute. They remember their children as brave and inseparable, bringing joy and laughter to gatherings. Despite the tragedy, Lalthan Lulangi encourages her husband to stay strong, emphasizing the importance of their fight for future generations' freedom from military oppression. Throughout Myanmar, ordinary people, including farmers, students, and former state workers, have taken up arms against the junta. Commander Vala of the People's Defense Forces proudly notes that the Myanmar military has been pushed more than 30 miles away from Hangul. At the local cemetery, fresh graves covered with plastic flowers mark the resting places of those who died fighting, including Lalman Pui and La Ruatmoya. At the CNA's Victoria Base, south of Hangul, hundreds of young recruits march and undergo weapons training, ready to defend their homeland. Many of these young fighters had once aspired to peaceful careers but were driven to resistance by the military's brutality. 19-year-old Than Dar Lin, who had dreamed of becoming a teacher, joined the CNA after her village was shelled and her home destroyed. Forced to flee to the jungle, she chose to fight for her country and people. Thousands of state workers have also joined the revolution. 22-year-old Van Lalpekthar left a comfortable police job to resist the junta, a decision his mother, Molly Kiang, supports, despite the hardships it brought. This widespread uprising, driven by a desire for freedom and justice, continues to challenge Myanmar's military rule, with young and old alike united in their resolve to reclaim their country. Back to you, Bella.
Thanks for that update.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is scheduled to address U.S. lawmakers in Washington, D.C. on July 24, as announced by congressional leaders. He will speak to both the Senate and the House of Representatives amid the ongoing Israel-Gaza war. The invitation was extended by both Republicans and Democrats, although the date was only confirmed recently. We have Jensen reporting on this.
Last month, the International Criminal Court, ICC, prosecutors sought arrest warrants for Netanyahu and his defense minister, Yoav Gallant, over charges related to the war. Netanyahu condemned the ICC's actions, strongly rejecting the comparison of Israel to mass murderers and emphasizing the justice of Israel's cause against those aiming to destroy the country. House Speaker Mike Johnson and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, both Republicans, invited Netanyahu to share Israel's perspective on defending democracy, combating terrorism, and seeking lasting peace in the region. Despite tensions between the U.S. and Israel, particularly among leading U.S. Democrats, Senate Democrat Chuck Schumer supported the invitation, citing the importance of the U.S.-Israel relationship beyond individual leaders. U.S. President Joe Biden has grown increasingly critical of Israel as the conflict persists and the death toll in Gaza rises. Facing pressure from his party's progressive wing, Biden has advocated for a ceasefire and proposed a plan involving a humanitarian aid surge and an exchange of hostages for Palestinian prisoners, aiming for a permanent end to the conflict. However, this proposal has faced strong opposition from members of Israel's government, casting doubt on its feasibility. Netanyahu's upcoming address will be his first to the U.S. Congress since 2015, when he criticized then-President Barack Obama's approach to Iran's nuclear program. Back to you, John.
Thanks for that update.
Hunter Biden's ex-girlfriend, Hallie Biden, testified in a federal courtroom about a moment that caused a chaotic sequence of events involving a gun found in Hunter Biden's car. Hallie, the widow of Hunter's late brother Beau, discovered the revolver amid clothes and litter in the glove compartment of Hunter's truck. She expressed feeling embarrassed and ashamed for starting to smoke crack cocaine, a habit she picked up from Hunter. We have Alana reporting on this.
This marks the first trial for the son of a sitting U.S. president, with Hunter Biden facing up to 25 years in prison if found guilty. He has pleaded not guilty to 3 charges related to possessing a firearm while allegedly using narcotics. The charges stem from accusations that he lied on federal paperwork when purchasing the revolver and ammunition from a Wilmington, Delaware gun shop on October 12, 2018. His defense argues that he was in recovery at the time and was truthful in indicating he was not a drug user. Hallie Biden's testimony detailed her volatile and off-and-on relationship with Hunter, marked by struggles with drug use and attempts at recovery. She recounted how she frequently searched his truck, fearing he might have relapsed. On October 23, 2018, she found remnants of crack cocaine, drug paraphernalia, and the gun. Panicking, she wrapped the revolver in a leather pouch, placed it in a purple gift bag, and threw it in a grocery store trash bin. Realizing her mistake, she returned to retrieve the gun, but found it missing. She then filed a police report. During her testimony, text messages between her and Hunter were shown, revealing his anger and her distress over the situation. The gun was later found by a man who scavenged through the store's trash for recyclables. Hallie Biden testified that she had not seen Hunter use crack cocaine in the days leading up to his purchase of the gun and her disposal of it. Throughout her testimony, Hunter Biden appeared to look intently at her and occasionally at his wife, Melissa Cohen Biden, who has been present at the trial each day. Back to you, Bella.
Thanks for that update.
As Europeans prepare to vote in the upcoming European Parliament elections, millions of young people will cast their ballots for the first time, with some countries lowering the voting age to 16. In Belgium, Germany, Austria, Greece, and Malta, minors will have the chance to participate in these elections. For 17-year-old Belgian student Mare Verlinde, this is a significant opportunity, giving young people a voice they never had before. Her friend, Augustine, believes Europe needs to become stronger and less reliant on NATO. We have Jordan reporting on this.
Security is a major concern for this generation, who no longer feel as assured of Europe's safety as they did in the past. Laura Sleeks, another 17-year-old, expresses fear about potential future wars in Europe, a sentiment echoed by her friends. The 2019 European elections saw record turnout among young voters, with many supporting Green parties advocating for strong climate policies. This was seen as a green wave. However, political landscapes can change quickly, and now, a significant number of young voters are considering right-wing and far-right parties, many of which are Eurosceptic. Vince Szabo, a 25-year-old Hungarian attending an anti-EU farmers' protest in Brussels, explains that many of his friends are voting for the right to challenge the status quo. He believes the right can solve issues where the left has failed. This generation, having grown up during the COVID pandemic, faces multiple concerns: war in Europe, climate change, job market uncertainty, and housing affordability. Lazar Petrovic, a 25-year-old from a Hungarian minority in Serbia, feels traditional parties are not addressing the needs of young people who are at critical life stages such as starting jobs and families. High rent prices and job scarcity are major issues for them. Dave Sinardet, a political science professor at the Free University of Brussels, notes that far-right parties are successfully courting young voters by channeling anti-establishment sentiments and presenting a rebellious image, particularly with their anti-woke agenda. For Spain's Vox Party leader, Santiago Abascal, transgender rights and abortion are key issues. Migration is another significant factor driving young voters to the right. Last year, 380,000 people illegally crossed the EU's borders, the highest number since 2016. Giorgio, a 28-year-old Italian, plans to vote for Giorgia Meloni's Brothers of Italy, favoring a migration policy similar to that of Hungary, Slovakia, and Poland, which oppose the EU's new migration pact. These elections highlight the diverse and evolving priorities of young Europeans as they navigate a complex and changing political landscape. Back to you, John.
Thanks for that update.
Countries worldwide are shifting their approach after years of sharply raising borrowing costs to curb soaring prices. On Thursday, the European Central Bank, ECB, announced its first interest rate cut in 5 years, reducing its main lending rate from 4% to 3.75%. This move follows Canada's similar step and recent rate cuts in Sweden, Switzerland, Brazil, and Mexico. We have Ava reporting on this.
While the UK and US, where borrowing costs are currently at their highest in years, are not expected to cut rates this month, many analysts predict action later in the summer or early autumn. The global battle against inflation, sparked by the pandemic, appears to be entering a new phase, with optimism growing in some of the hardest-hit economies that inflation is finally under control. Brian Colton, chief economist at Fitch Ratings, remarked, "We're moving into another stage." Just a few years ago, central banks worldwide were aggressively hiking interest rates to mitigate economic pressures, pushing prices up. These moves were synchronized, addressing global supply chain disruptions and shocks to food and energy markets that had caused prices to surge. However, over the past year, this coordination has faded and become more variable. In Europe, the UK, and the US, economies that had not faced significant inflation issues for decades, officials have kept rates at high levels. The ECB's recent decision signals confidence that trends are moving in the right direction, according to Emma Wall, head of investment research and analysis at Hargreaves Lansdowne. What the central bank is saying today is, although it might not be coming down in a straight line, they are confident they can get inflation back down to the 2% target level, she said. In Europe, inflation stands at 2.6%, while in the UK, it has dropped to 2.3%, a significant decrease from its peak of over 11% in late 2022. In the US, the Federal Reserve's preferred inflation gauge, the Personal Consumption Expenditures Index, has fallen to 2.7%. Despite this, the Federal Reserve has moved cautiously, reflecting concerns that progress might have stalled and that stronger-than-expected growth and significant government spending could complicate the issue. The Eurozone economy is in a different place than the U.S., noted Yael Selfin, chief economist at KPMG. Forecasters predict at least one or more rate cuts in the U.S., Europe, and the U.K. this year, with more expected in 2025. Such moves would provide relief to businesses and households looking to borrow. However, analysts caution that the path down for rates will likely be slower and more erratic than the climb up. Central bankers must balance the risk of reigniting economic activity that could push prices up against the risk of a severe economic downturn from prolonged high borrowing costs. In announcing its rate cut, the ECB avoided promising future actions, indicating caution. Mark Wall, chief economist at Deutsche Bank, noted the statement arguably gave less guidance than might have been expected on what comes next. This is not a central bank in a rush to ease policy. Joseph Gagnon, senior fellow at the Peterson Institute for International Economics, suggests that Europe's pre-pandemic factors, such as slower growth and an aging population, are likely to re-emerge, ultimately bringing rates closer to zero. However, he believes the U.S. will not return to the ultra-low borrowing costs of the post-financial crisis decade, partly due to large budget deficits that will likely maintain upward pressure on rates. We will be a little slower than Europe to cut, but I think we're also going to end up at a higher interest rate when this is all over, he concluded. Back to you, Bella.
Thanks for that update.
Thanks for tuning in to World in 15 for your daily dose of news and updates. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on breaking stories and insightful analysis.